Morning, Amani! I've made you a special PowerPoint and a special video because your mum told me that you were quite keen to do some art activities. So I thought you might like to make some paper mache sculpture about donuts. Right. So, contents page. So here's the contents of the video. So we're going to look at what is sculpture. We're also going to look at a famous pop artist called Claes Oldenburg. He makes sculptures. We're going to look at what resources we're going to need, how we're going to make the glue for our paper mache, and how to put together the donut base and how to tear the strips for the paper mache, and then how to paint the donut. So now we're going to look at what is sculpture. Have a look at these images, Amani, and see what you think they have in common. I'll give you a clue. They're all solid objects that are three-dimensional in space. Three-dimensional means that they have a height, a width, and a depth. Not like paper, that just has width and depth. So, sculpture is different from pictures. Sculpture is a 3D artwork created by shaping or combining materials. Materials may be worked by removal, such as carving, or they may be assembled, such as by gluing, or hardened, such as firing. So, materials, that's an interesting word. I wonder what some art materials for sculpture could be. Well, off the top of my mind, I know that there's wood carving, when people take away parts of the wood to carve out objects such as a horse or a sculpture, or even, for example, this pencil that I made. I've taken away parts of the wood and painted it and turned it into a sculpture of a pencil. People also mould clay and they shape it, say, into a person's face or into a horse. That's also sculpture. Here you can see some famous sculptures with this one here. It looks like metal has been connected together and created a big spider out of lots of different parts. Or here you can see that there's a balloon dog, and that looks like it's been through some type of firing process. So it could be, I think it looks like it's out of metal. So the metal, they might have made a special cast, like an object that is exactly like that dog, and then poured in hot metal to create that shape and then painted it. And this material is stone, so they've carved away to create that beautiful sculpture. And then this one, I'm not really sure what that one is made of, but it's definitely 3D, so in terms of an artwork, it is called a sculpture. And the artist that we're going to look at today, who is a sculptor, is called Claes Oldenburg. He is a pop artist from America. Now, his works are quite interesting, aren't they? That's a building, and that is a giant ice cream cone, and it looks like it's fallen on the building. This one over here is made out of metal and probably fiberglass, and it's a giant spoon with a cherry on top. Pretty funny, eh? They're all in public places, and so that means people in the community get to enjoy looking at these interesting things. Now, the thing I like about Claes Oldenburg is that he was a pop artist, and part of the pop arts movement in America was actually about adding a little bit of humour and not taking artwork so seriously, because during that time a lot of artists were creating very serious artwork that was about the war and about self-expressionism, and art had to be very heavy, and for it to be proper art, it couldn't be it couldn't be about everyday objects. So he thought, actually, I really like having a bit of a laugh, and I'm going to make these big life-size models, sculptures of everyday objects, because I think that they're really cool, and when you blow them up and make them so big, it makes them a lot more interesting to look at. So he also did some soft sculpture as well. So this one's made out of material, and you can see how the chips are falling out of the bag. And it's interesting because I wouldn't really look at chips in that way and think that they could be an artwork, or this apple core over here. But when it's so big, it makes me look at it a bit differently. I think, oh, it's quite an interesting shape, that apple, the way it is symmetrical like that, and the bit going out at the top. And also, these chips, they're kind of falling down like a waterfall, and they're made out of soft fabric, so it gives me a different type of experience to seeing normal chips. Like, normal chips aren't made out of fabric, like the fabric makes it kind of soft and makes me think, oh, I haven't really thought about chips in that way before. So, what we're going to do today is, along the same vein as Claes Oldenburg, we are going to make paper mache donuts. So these are actually some examples of paper mache donuts and how cool they look. So first of all, these are the things that you're going to need to make your donut. You're going to need flour, water, a mixing bowl, a spoon, tin foil, newspaper, and acrylic paint, and then something for the sprinkles. So this is how you make the glue. You don't need to cook it. All you'll need is your flour, water, whisk or spoon, and a bowl. So you want to get this all ready in the kitchen on a nice clear bench so that you can wipe it down afterwards if you make any mess. So the recipe says that you need to mix 1 part flour with 2 parts water in a bowl. So for example, if you wanted, you probably for this only need maybe half a cup of flour to 1 cup of water. And you can make the water a little bit warm. That can be a bit easier to mix than if it's really cold. Or if you want to, if you're making more than one donut, you could use 1 cup of flour and 2 cups of warm water. So you want to put it into a bowl and stir it until all the lumps are gone and the mix is nice and smooth, just like a runny cheese sauce. Then, if it's a little bit too thick, like if it forms clumps, like if you can actually scoop it out with a spoon and it looks more like muffin mixture, then it's too thick and you need to add a bit of water, because remember, you're going to be putting strips of newspaper in to soak it. So it needs to be able to soak into the newspaper strips. Then you can just store it in the fridge until you need it. Oh, also at this point, you might want to also add 2 tablespoons of salt so that it doesn't go off. And here's just a few tips for making the glue. If you can't get the lumps out, you can use an electric mixer or maybe mum to help you. And a few tips about using with the paper. It's really good if you tear it into strips, if you tear it lengthwise into strips. So nice little thin strips. You don't want them too fat. And really, I guess the smaller you do them, the smoother it is. But yeah, you don't need to make them too small. You can also use tissue or paper towels, and that's really good on the last and final coat. So it's quite good that if you give that, when you put your newspaper strips into your glue, you give them a good soak. You make sure that there's lots of glue on there. You don't have to leave them, but you need to make sure that all of the paper strip gets the glue over top of it before using it. And then you only want to maybe do about 2 or 3 layers of paper at a time, and then let it completely dry. If you're making a skinny donut, that will actually be fine. You only have to do 2 or 3 layers, and then you can leave it to dry and maybe paint it the next day. But if you want to make a big fat donut, then you might have to do maybe 2 or 3 sessions of 2 or 3 layers. So for example, you might do 9 or 10 layers in total, and then but you need to make sure that you let it dry in between each paper mache session. That's an important step. And if you like, you can make the final layer in plain paper so that it's easier to paint. But try and use the thinnest paper possible, like really soft tissue. But just be careful when you're pulling it out because it can break. And this one here, whoops, I forgot to delete some of the words, but that's okay. So with this picture here, what I wanted to show you was this is your tin foil here, and you want to do this in 2 steps. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get your tin foil, and you want to have it in a long piece, and you want to kind of roll it together and then join it up and scrunch it down together. And then with your second piece of tin foil, you just want to nice smooth over the top until it's all connected, because you want to make sure it's nice and strong and it's not going to come apart where you've joined it. Then once you've done that and you've made your glue and you've got your strips of newspaper, then you want to start putting the strips around the donut. So all the way around. So you've got really nice smushy paper that goes all the way around, and you just want to smooth it down gently as you join each piece. And you want to do 2 to 3 layers of that, and then let it dry, wash your hands, and put the bits and pieces away. And you don't have to do 1 donut. You could do maybe 3 each. That'd be quite cool, because then at the end of it you could make a wee box and then even do a label that says Amani's Donuts. It'd be cool, and you could trick everyone. So once you've done that, once you've done your 2 to 3 layers, the next step would be painting it. So when you paint the donut, you're going to do it in 3 steps. You're going to choose and mix your base colour. So if you want to do a realistic donut, you would mix up a beige bread coloured tone and paint completely all your donut. Then you would let that dry. You can dry it with a hairdryer if you want to speed that process up. Then you would choose and mix your icing colour. These colours are often, let me think, so you get vanilla donuts, chocolate donuts, strawberry donuts, lime donuts. So you want to think about what flavour do you want your donut to be, and then mix the appropriate colour. So if it's strawberry, you're probably going to do something like pink, which is made with red and white. Or if you're going to do chocolate, you want brown, which you can make from yellow, red and blue. But just experiment with your colours a little bit, because it's quite important to get a yummy kind of icing colour. And then once you've done that, you can add that on. So you don't want to paint the whole thing, you just want to paint the top with the icing, and you kind of want to make it nice and thick like real icing. And then the final step, probably don't even need to let that dry, because then you can add your sprinkles. If you've got some hundreds and thousands, then that's fantastic. Otherwise you can use small beads or bits of coloured paper, and then you can put it in a special spot for everyone to appreciate. So just before the video finishes, here's a few little bits of inspiration. This one's cool because that's a paper mache donut, and then that's a real one that's called a unicorn donut. Look at all the colours. And then finally, this looks so yum, there's a chocolate and a strawberry one. Well, Amani, I hope you've enjoyed this video and it gives you some ideas. If you need any help, you just ask Mum to message me. Okay, lots of love, Auntie Coral.